Hey everyone, Tina Hogan Grant here with my Cuppa A Natter that I like to do twice a month on a Monday. I love to invite authors into my home. We talk about books, of course, writing, life as an author, and whatever comes to mind. And tonight my guest is Noa Silver. How are you this evening, my dear?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
I am excited to talk to you. I really am. Number one, before we get started about your book, which is called California Dreaming, and I have so many questions because I'm in California and I found out that you're in California.
Yeah.
So we should have a lot to talk about.
Indeed.
Can you just give a little background to yourself? Anything you want to share with the rest of the world?
Sure. Well, my childhood was spent in multiple different countries. My parents are classical musicians. So I was born in Jerusalem and then spent 10 years in Glasgow, Scotland. My mother is Scottish. And then my family moved to Maine. So one of the things that I hold dear is just a sense of there being multiple stories and multiple perspectives on ways of living and ways of being. And that's one of the things that really drew me to writing and reading, and one of the things I love most about what I get to do, which is to imagine into other lives.
How exciting! So you've been around the globe a few times. You were born in Jerusalem.
Yep.
Born in Jerusalem, then moved to Scotland. I'm from England, so we have that in common.
Right.
In the UK, I came to the United States and now ended up in California, and you're in California too.
I am. I'm in California too. Yes. I came out here after a couple of years after I graduated college, following love, and it has worked out very well. Yeah. Yeah.
And what part of California are you in?
I'm in Berkeley, right in the Bay Area.
Okay. I am. It's a small little town called Fraser Park.
Okay.
But I'm about 75 miles north of Los Angeles.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Little mountain community. If you know of Magic Mountain, I'm about 4 miles north of that, off the 5. Like all our readers know exactly where that is. Speaking of readers, I do want to just pop them up real quick. We have some people joining us. Again, I am talking to Noa Silver. She is the author of California Dreaming. And if you have any questions for Noa, go ahead and put them in the comments, and I will get to as many as I can. But let's pop up some names here. We have Darlene joining us. Hey, Darlene.
Hi.
We have Karen. Karen is here. And Virgie Lane. And then Karen Geeling, second Karen. And then we have Lori. And let me see. We have Diane is here. Thank you so much for joining us. I saw another one here that I didn't click on, but we'll click on them again. But okay, Noa, this is your debut novel. I understand this is your debut novel. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
I want to ask first, being your debut, when was this published?
It was published this week, 5 days ago.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I had no idea.
It came out on Tuesday of last week. Yes. So
well, this is perfect time to have your chat, because we booked this a while back. And I didn't
That's right. Yes. It's been on the books for a while.
Yeah. So this is the debut week for your book. You must be on cloud 9.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Yes. I've been looking forward to this week for many, many, many years, but
how exciting. And I'm going to start at the very beginning. Number one. Okay. I have now that I know this is like the week of your book. Here we go.
Yeah.
Because this takes me back to when I first wrote my book in 2018, and I'm releasing book number 15 in a couple of months.
Wow.
But the feeling of releasing that new book, how you're feeling now, just never gets old. Don't ever think that it dries up.
Yeah.
It does stay the same. It's the high that you just cannot replace.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
So first of all, the book is called California Dreaming. I know you have a copy next to you. Can we hold that up for our readers?
Yes.
I love the cover.
Thank you.
And that is a photo of, where is that in?
This is in San Francisco. This is one of the old tram lines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, did you have any say in this cover? Is that a personal photo of yours?
It's not a personal photo, but I did have say. Yeah. The creative team at my press presented me with a variety of options that went in various directions. This actually, I had no questions. I saw this one and I knew that this was the one. Yeah.
So. I love black and white photos. Yeah. Doesn't matter if it's on a book cover or whatever. I just are drawn to black and white covers. And you do not see a lot of them on books.
Yeah.
You do not. And this, what I like about this too, is the font on top of the black and white really pops.
Yeah.
So it does draw you in. When I look at old photos, I just want to zoom in and see where it is, whether I recognize it, and then I try and guess the era, what year it was it. So there's so many questions when I see black and white photos, and for me, I want to know more.
Cool. Well,
and I hope that the readers that pick up your book have the same instincts as me.
Yeah, me too.
Can you just give us a little background on what the book is about?
Sure. So the book is set in the Bay Area in the 2010s, and it follows Elena, who comes out to the Bay Area from New England, fresh out of college as a young, idealistic Teach for America teacher. And then over the course of the next decade, it follows her as she encounters the reality to her idealism. She tries to stick. She has a lot of stories and ideas about what teaching should or ought to be that don't totally pan out. She ends up leaving teaching and joins a tech company. And and the book kind of traces her all the way up till she turns 30 and gives, I think of it as a kind of the story of adulting in the 20s and lots of different stories. And along the way, there are a lot of different romantic interests, and there's a backdrop of California itself during the 2010s. So traces the Occupy movement and wildfires, the 2016 election. All of this is the context in which she is growing up. And there's some interesting relationships with her mother and her grandparents, all of whom are big influences in her life.
She experienced it beginning in 2010. She experienced a lot.
Yes, the book starts in 2011.
Right. She came from Maine to California, which, like yourself, did. Is this based loosely on your life?
It's a good question. It's not based on my life, but there are a lot of elements, of course, that I drew from. I kind of think of my fiction as being a tapestry. And I used all of these ingredients from my life, from other people's lives. There's a quote I love that says something like, be warned, I'm a writer, so anything you say might be used in a story.
Right.
So, there are a lot of different pieces that either I've heard or I've imagined or were part of kind of the beginnings in my life, but then expanded into this new version.
Right. Okay. I understand that. I just drew a blank. What was I going to ask you? Oh, here we go. The book. What, how can I put this? What gave you the idea to write this book?
Yeah. So in 2017, 2018, I was working. I'm an editor as well as a writer, and I was working in a project that took me to downtown San Francisco every day. And so I was taking BART from my home in Berkeley, taking the train to San Francisco every day, and I had this kind of uncanny experience that I think probably many people do, where I was walking the streets of downtown San Francisco alongside many people who were going to jobs that were ostensibly jobs that were going to change the world. And alongside us were many suffering people, homeless people, people who were sitting on the streets right next to me on my walk to work. And I sort of felt like there were two worlds overlapping. There was like this gritty underside of San Francisco, and then there was this kind of sheen of the, I guess the privileged and and it struck me. It felt really uncomfortable and confusing, and I wanted to kind of unpack that feeling of what it is to have a place that feels like it holds so many experiences. There's this like sheen, I keep using that word, but there's a veneer, I think, of the Bay Area and of California, this place of promise, and especially Silicon Valley and the ideas, we're going to change the world, we're going to do this. And there are a lot of suffering people right here in front of us. And it doesn't always feel like those two worlds interact, but they're both there.
Yeah. I mean, I came to California in, God, I'm going to feel old. I think about 25, 30 years ago. It might even be longer. And it's not the state that I came to. It really is not. And I mean, you're up in Berkeley, you're up near San Francisco. The last time I went to San Francisco, I actually went to Alcatraz. I've been fascinated with Alcatraz for decades. I watched the movie with Clint Eastwood, and I've always wanted to go see it. Yeah. And even when I went then, that was 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah. I noticed the change. Before then, I had gone maybe 20 years ago, and that's where I learned to drive, was San Francisco.
Really?
With a stick. I used to live in Sonora with my dad. Yeah. And he drove a stick, and he taught me to drive. And he said, if you can drive a stick in San Francisco, you can drive anywhere. That's right.
You can drive up those hills with a stick shift. That's impressive.
Oh, yeah. But it's just so sad how this state, I mean, I hate to say it, has deteriorated. It really is. And you see more of it than I do. Yeah. And I like the fact that you wrote a book about these experiences that you're seeing. Yeah. Of course, I have not read the book, and I don't know how much detail you went into it, but being in California and relating to this, I definitely am going to be reading this book.
Oh, thank you.
So I really, what genre would you say this book is?
Literary fiction. Yeah, although I think sort of adjacent also to, it's really, the main character is a woman, and it's in first person. So I also think of it as, deeply invested in a woman's experience of the world and giving her.
And is this a standalone, or do you think it will turn into more than one book?
It's not been planned as more than one book, but you never know. Maybe she keeps going. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what one of my books, I wrote a trilogy and I wrote a 8-book series, but each one was supposed to be one book.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And especially the Sabella series, each character ended up getting their own book. Right. And I love that you could do spin-offs with characters. Right. So you just never know. But now this book I'm coming out now, it is a standalone. And I'm just adamant about that.
Yes.
But they say never say never. And I'm not going there. But I keep telling my readers, I finally wrote a standalone.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to say hello to some more people that have joined us. But also, when did you start writing this book? And how long does it take? 3 questions in one. Okay. Number 1, when did you start writing it? Yeah. How long did it take you to write? Yeah. And with your writing practice, did you plan it, plot it, or did you just let the characters tell you the story?
Well, I'll start with the most straightforward one. I started writing it in 2018. That I can remember sitting down to write one of the first scenes, and then it kind of came in fits and starts. Actually, I have 2 kids who are 5 and under. So I had my first child in 2019 and second in 2021. And I had to navigate becoming a mother and figuring out how my creative practice worked with being a new mom. Also, the lockdown and the pandemic happened among that time. So I think the total writing process from start to first draft was probably 3 or 4 years, 3 years maybe, and then another 6 months of a year of intensive editing and rewriting. And in terms of how my process, it didn't start with a plan in any way. It started with a scene and a character. And this feeling that I was saying, this kind of, I wanted to explore the discrepancy of like, I have these big ideas, which I feel like felt so true to me about the 20s, that era. Big ideas, big plans, and then reality. And what do I do when those things bump up against each other? So I had a kind of feeling that I wanted to explore, and I had a character. But at the beginning, I had no plan. But I will say it changed at different points. I went through chunks of time where I had scenes that I had mapped out of, oh, I know that I want this experience or that experience. And definitely at the end, or I would say towards the end, when I was really trying to make sure that the dramatic arc worked, that the experience of the reader would move in a dramatic arc, I did do a lot of like moving around and figuring out how things work together. Yeah, to make that work.
Now, the title, California Dreaming, did you have that prior to writing the book, or did that come while you were writing?
It came while I was writing. It's a very, it's an interesting, it's an intentional play, for sure. And it's similar with the black and white cover, you know, like harkens to the mythology of California in a certain way. And I think part of that, it's part of that mythology that Elena is really bumping up against.
Well, I like the title because most people come to California because it is the state, the state of opportunity. And it's not just, you know, with the Hollywood, with the movies, with the beaches. I mean, back in the day, it was the state of opportunity. So California Dreaming, I think, was the perfect title. I think it's perfect. It really is. I saw a question here that I want to pop up about characters. If I haven't, here it is. It's from Karen. She's asking, do your characters talk to you?
Oh, that's a cool question. Sometimes when I was in the writing process, I kind of felt like I inhabited them in many ways. So it's a kind of talking that I feel like we kind of merged in certain ways.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, you'll know it's going to be a book 2 if they continue to talk to you.
Yeah,
that's what ended up with me.
I
kept hearing my characters after I finished the book. I'm like, okay, I guess we're writing another book. So, so if they continue to talk to you.
Right. Yeah.
So popping up some more names here. Diane is here. She says you're a new author.
Nice
to her. Barbara is here from Florida. And Karen says, so excited to hear about your debut novel. How does your family feel about this book that you wrote, and have they read it?
They have, yeah. Pretty positive. My parents have actually they didn't read it during the process of the writing process. So they just read it in the last couple weeks. And that's been really cool to see their encountering of it. My husband was my first reader, so he has read all the drafts along the way. And it's been really exciting for me, for my 2 girls to see me in this light. You know, they know me so much as Mama, and they know that Mama writes and Mama edits, but they don't see that as much. And it's been very cool, especially in this launch week, that they have seen me in this way. That's felt really good.
How exciting. I mean, I'm so proud of you. I mean, I'm so happy for you. I had no idea it was this week. That is so exciting. Do you plan on, whether it be a series for this book or a completely different story, are you going to continue to write? Do you have any plans for a book after this one? Have you started it?
Yeah, I haven't started it, but it's already talking to me. I'll say that. Which has felt exciting. I didn't know if there was going to be space. I've been working on this one for so long, and it started percolating, but I haven't started writing it. But I feel pretty curious, like what it will feel like to engage in a writing process after already having come out in a certain way.
And with your children being older,
there's a lot more. Yeah.
I don't know how you manage to write with young ones. I just can't even fathom. I have a brand new puppy. And I've not had a puppy in 15 years, and it's like having a child. I swear. And it's like I have to, you know, like right now he's outside in his area, so I could talk to you, but it's like I have to all of a sudden schedule my time around my puppy, you know. So But oh my goodness, so I'm excited about that. But with this book, did you write at home? Did you have an area that you like to write in all the time? There's a question right here. Here it is. Dana's asking, do you have a favorite place to write? Do you have a work area, or some authors like to go to coffee houses?
Yeah. In the first couple of years of writing, when I either didn't have a kid or just had one kid, I would write at home. For me, for writing, I kind of need to like close out all the external influences. So I like coffee shops for inspiration because there's so much human experience happening around me. But actually, when I'm going to sit down and write, it's too loud and cluttered. So my favorite places to write are somewhere quiet and cozy, where it feels like there's not much external stimuli, which sometimes means like in bed, or in the coziest chair in the house. Yeah, I don't have, but I hope to one day, like my, a writing desk and space in our house. That's not.
Yeah. Oh, you'll get that. Do you work other than being a mom at home and also writing your novels? Do you also have a job outside of the home?
I'm a freelance developmental editor, so I work with people on their manuscripts, usually nonfiction and fiction, more at the beginning stages, to work on the overall structures and narratives. Yeah, I love it. It feels like
you're a busy woman. You're a busy woman. Lori wants to know, who are some of your favorite authors?
Oh, yeah. Well, one of my favorite authors is Marilynne Robinson, who wrote Gilead. And it's a book that I think it's a remarkable book. It's a very meditative, slow-paced book, but it still has this remarkable momentum through it, very character-driven. And in general, I'm drawn to character-driven books. But I think it can get tricky in those books, and also something that I struggled with in my own figuring out my writing practice of how to have a character-driven, meditative, kind of deeply thoughtful, sensitive, spiritual book that also moves, that makes people want to turn the page. And I think Marilynne Robinson is like I think she's done it.
I have not read her books, but I'll be looking her up.
Yeah.
And did any authors inspire this book?
Yeah, that's a good question. Lily King, she's another one of my favorites. She has a book called Writers and Lovers, that's also about a young woman in her, not like quite post-college, but I think like mid-20s, who's kind of trying to become herself, trying to become a writer. And that type of becoming of a character was really appealing to me in this. Yeah.
Okay. And you went to a publisher for this book.
Yeah.
And congratulations on that. Will you continue to go through the same publisher? Are you very pleased with them?
It's been a really supportive and wonderful process. So potentially, I think.
Oh, good. Yeah. I'm excited. This new book, I'm already excited about this one that you just brought out, but I'm excited for you to continue to write.
Thank you.
It sounds like your family is very supportive.
They are. They're
very are. Can I ask you about your parents? I read in your bio that, was it your father that survived the Holocaust?
No, neither of my parents survived the Holocaust, but there are characters in the book that survived the Holocaust.
Okay, that's where I got it mixed up. Okay, I just wanted to ask about that. Okay, all right. Okay, Karen was asking, do you edit your own books?
Oh, yeah, right. Good question. Not in the same way that I can edit other people's books. No, I sought a lot of help. I had friends who I trust in their reading do first rounds, and I said my husband was my first reader, and then I also actually through my editing community have another editor friend who I really trust and respect, and she edited my book before it went to the press. And so there's been a lot of different eyes on it beforehand, but I think it's so hard to edit our own stuff because I know what I mean.
And we read our books the way we want them to read.
Exactly.
We'll skip things. I have an art team, and I always say to them, if you see anything out of the ordinary, even when it comes to typos, let me know. And of course, I have an editor like you do, but I always say, the more eyes on my work, the better.
Yeah.
Before it goes to publication.
Yeah.
And we have to, when it comes to even bad reviews, you have to learn to have a tough skin, and hopefully you'll learn from it.
Absolutely. Yes.
That's just part of the author business. With your book that you're working now, you said it was, women's fiction?
The California Dreaming?
Yeah.
Yeah. Literary fiction and kind of women's
fiction adjacent. Do you think you'll continue to write in that genre, or is there a genre that's just eating away that you might never go?
I love literary fiction. It's really what I grew up in and what my love of literature stemmed in. So I think it's the one I feel most versed in, most comfortable in. Mm-hmm. And I feel really drawn to writing about women, especially women going through sort of life transitions or not. But I feel committed to giving a woman's voice in literature. I think actually they've been women's experiences are not nearly as chronicled as much as men's life experiences are.
Okay, being your debut novel.
Yes.
Is there anything that you would do different for your second novel? I mean, this is a learning experience for all of us when we write our first book, and we learn a lot when we publish our first book. Is there something that just pops out that writing your next book, you might do something different or anything?
The first thing that came to mind, which is less about writing the book and more about this week, is I will have somebody else plan my launch event.
Really?
Yeah. I'll get to enjoy it rather than being on logistics.
Okay, I got to ask, what did you do to celebrate with your family? Did you do anything with the family?
Much of my family came out to California from their various East Coast locations, which was lovely. My parents and my in-laws and my sister and my best friend from Colorado. So there are a lot of people who came in. And then with my community here in Berkeley, we had a lovely soiree evening. I gave a reading. There was cake and champagne. It was great.
Fantastic. Now, you're going to be doing any upcoming book signings for the book?
Yes, I have a few. I have another one in Berkeley mid-June. And then we spend regularly, we spend the summers on the East Coast with our families. So I have a few on the East Coast in Maine and Boston and Charlotte and Baltimore. Yeah.
Congratulations. How exciting. I am so happy for you. Oh, my goodness.
Thank you.
Okay. We're halfway through this chat, and you have a treat for us. You are going to read us a little excerpt from the book.
Yes.
My readers love hearing the authors read their work.
Oh,
so
great.
I'm excited to hear you read.
Okay.
And I'm going to be quiet.
Okay.
It's all yours.
So I'm going to read. It's in the beginning of the book, and it's when we really get to meet Elena's grandparents, who are huge influences in her life. And this is also where I think the Holocaust confusion came from. So we can hear about that. Okay, this is chapter 9. My grandmother, Sadie, was born in Berlin, the youngest daughter of a concert pianist, and was herself a promising young singer. She grew up skipping through performance halls, fidgeting through her father's rehearsals, dozing off to the same musical phrase played over and over again, and later falling asleep to the sounds of tequila shots and the suck of lines taken in the living room after the concert was over, the nerves subsided, the reviews not yet published. As a young girl, my grandmother was thin, with eyes too big for the rest of her face. Her eyes were dark, almost violet-colored, and they stood out starkly against the pale white of her skin. Her brown hair hung straight down her back. Sometimes she lost control of her long fingers. They would fly up in front of her, unbidden, and twist and shake and wave about, some unknown energy shooting through her arms and imbuing her wrists and hands and fingers with a kind of autonomous agency. She was supposed to be on a Kinder transport train out of Germany to London in the summer of 1940, but she woke up that day with a fever, and her mother kept her home. My grandmother's 2 younger cousins were on that train and made it to the English countryside by autumn, but the train stopped running soon thereafter. By the time my grandmother's fever had subsided, there were no more opportunities to leave. Instead, in 1943, she and her family went to Terezin, the death camp reserved for musicians and artists, and she sang in the children's choir while her father, emaciated and starving, performed for the Red Cross and the Nazi guards. My grandmother has always said that her childhood home was full of jumbled up secrets, piles of memories scattered through the living room and the kitchen and the hallway. They lived together, not just her and her siblings and parents, but with the older generation too. Her grandmother and great aunt lived with them, and they carried with them all sorts of hidden tales, love affairs and bitter deals, bits of old world trauma that crept in through the genes. Sadie's great aunt Esty moved in with them when her mind began to wander. Esty would catch sight of herself in the mirror and not recognize the image as a reflection. Instead, she saw another version of herself. The other Esty, she called her. She would speak to this other Esty and beg her to leave her alone, implore her to go away. At night, she would leave a coat, hat, and scarf hanging by the door, an invitation to the other Esty to please leave, to take her things and go. At some point, without discussing it with anyone, my grandmother's parents took down the mirrors that hung in the hallway and the bathrooms. But they couldn't replace every piece of glassware or the piano top or the window on a foggy morning. The other Esty found her way in, even without the mirrors, and my grandmother and her sisters would slip in between the real and the reflected Esty, not knowing whether to laugh or cry at the sight of them each yelling and gesticulating at each other. Of course, it wasn't a secret that Esty was troubled. Her suffering happened out loud and in front of everyone, and yet somehow it remained something of an open secret, one that was never spoken about. Some form of taboo was in place, a belief in the magical power of assigning words to terrible things, that doing so would make it real and therefore permanent, something that had to be dealt with. Whereas when it was tacitly ignored, it could be contained. Esty's pain could be kept in check. It was as though the family's silence was what was holding them all together, keeping everything from collapsing, crumbling out in the open. My grandparents met in a displacement camp when the war was over, the concentration camps liberated, but the ashes not yet swept away. He heard her singing, a Yiddish lullaby she had learned from a bunkmate, a young woman who did not survive, and approached her, hat in hand. My mother used to sing that to me, he said. They were an unlikely match. My grandfather, Nathan, was from a small town outside of Lviv, Kamionka Strumilova, and the eldest son of a tailor. Once, during the Great War, a section of the Soviet army put out a call for bids from local tailors. It was winter. The soldiers needed warm clothes and boots. The army was desperate. They were even willing to accept bids from Jewish tailors. My grandfather's father put forth the lowest bid, lower by far than any of the competing tailors. The army selected him to make the additional uniforms required, but it was only after he signed on that he realized he had made the offer at cost, that the payment he would receive would only cover the price of the fabric, that there would be no profit. It almost ruined him. When my grandfather would talk about Kamionka Strumilova, his voice would take on a sing-song quality. The Jews of Kamionka Strumilova, he would say, much like the Jews of elsewhere, relied heavily on their history. The stories of their collective and individual pasts were essential to maintaining their sense of existential rootedness. For what other reason did they read and reread ancient texts year after year, reminding themselves again and again of the creation of the world and the creation of themselves? With each telling of a story, they constructed and reconstructed themselves, shaping themselves as sculptors would create a figure out of shapeless clay each morning, so that only by nightfall had they become fully formed and could rest easily. In the evenings, as they lay down to sleep, we prayed that they would not die in the night, that they would return to wakefulness the next day and begin again the process of forming themselves anew. Children were taught the stories from the time they could speak, and the people of Kamionka Strumilova walked around muttering them constantly under their breath, almost as if they believed that if they stopped telling the stories for even a minute, they would cease to be. The clay would crumble and they would disappear into the earth. As history continued on, the culmination of stories eventually became overwhelming. so that a person would have had to muddle continuously and at a highly uncomfortable speed from before dawn until after dusk to get through the entire history of the world. It became essential to share the responsibility of storytelling among the people of Kamionka-Stromilova. Between the townspeople, therefore, there were those responsible for the early stories of the creation of the world, those responsible for the creation of the Jews, and those responsible for the creation of the town itself. Among families, the responsibility for the family history was divided too, so that, generally, the women and children became the bearers of the individual family history, while the men were responsible for the collective history. Each person then was dependent on their neighbor to ensure his own survival. My grandparents were married, unofficially, my grandfather always said with a wink, in camp, and officially several years later once they arrived in New York. My grandmother wanted to pursue her singing career, but my mother was conceived, and so instead my grandmother sang lullabies and songs to wake up to, songs to clean the dishes and sweep the floors to. My grandfather was hired as a teacher. What subject do you teach? They asked him. What subject do you need? He responded, and ended up teaching geography to middle schoolers for decades. I am convinced there are generations of New Yorkers who know absolutely nothing about land formation or soil composition, but could tell you the history of Irish soda bread and how many stones were used to build the Great Wall of China, 100 million tons of stone, bricks, and mud. My grandfather's stories were wide-ranging, and his ability to spin a single question into a class-long tale, a legacy from growing up in Kamionka-Stromilova, legendary.
Thank you so much. I'm intrigued. Very descriptive too. You're a wonderful writer. And we've got some wonderful comments up here. Thank you for reading. Sounds awesome. Love this great reading. Thank you for reading. Thank you so much. I absolutely love hearing authors read from their work. I really do. I really do. I also noticed some comments when you were reading that they were hearing some kind of tapping noise or crackling noise. How is the audio on your end? Is it sound okay?
Sounds good.
Yeah. It sounds good. I just want the audience to just let me know, is it both of us that are tapping or crackling? I just noticed a few comments. I'll when I do the replay at the end, I just want to if I can erase it, I can. But beautiful reading. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. Now the book, California Dreaming, I saw is available on Amazon paperback and Kindle, but I'm assuming it's available wide, like Barnes and Noble, everywhere.
Anywhere you buy books, Barnes and Noble, Bookshop. You can also order it at your local bookstore, and they will get it for you. Yeah.
Okay. And how about Kindle Unlimited? Is it on KU?
I think so.
It is? Okay, wonderful. And then how about audio?
It's not yet on audio. We're working on it.
That takes time. I've been trying to do mine forever. Like, I'll get there. I'll get there. But I would love to have it on audio. And then for me, I want a narrator. There's so much AI out there. It is just stepping on everyone's toes.
I know.
It really is. And for me, it's scary. And it seems like every time I do a chat, whether it be with an author or by myself, I start ranting about AI. So I'm going to pull myself back in. It's just everywhere. And it's just like, oh my goodness. All right. Okay. When you're not writing.
Yes.
And you want to just break away from the book world, the writing world, what do you like to do? To just escape, relax?
I love to go hiking, and I live in an amazing place where it's almost always hiking weather. So that's one thing I do often. I try to go hiking in the redwoods or just the hills around. And I also love. My parents are musicians, so I grew up with music in my house, and I love listening to music or making music. My husband plays guitar and we'll sing together.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
My husband bought me a guitar about 5 years ago and I still have not learned how to play it.
Yeah.
It's like, when do I have the time? I would love to learn how to play it. I mean, I picked it up and played around with it, but to actually figure it out and what I'm supposed to, strumming or whatever. I just have not had the time, but I'm envious that you know how to play the guitar. I love it.
Yeah.
I really do. And then how about travel? I know you're from Maine, you're here in California, but do you like to travel with your family? Do you travel?
Yes, I love to travel. It's a whole new world traveling with children. So we are learning that new world. Yeah. But we are actually embarking on a huge adventure at the end of the summer. We're going to move to Portugal.
You're going to move?
Amount of time, yeah.
Move as in leave the United States?
Move, yeah.
Wow. Now, have you been to Portugal before? Or is this
We've been to Portugal before. Yeah, we fell in love with the country and are excited to go.
Wow.
How adventure. Yeah.
When is this going to happen again?
That's in the end of the summer.
This year?
This year, I know.
Wow, new book
happening this year.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I hope that all goes well for you. Now, do you speak Portuguese? Is there a lot of people speaking English?
Not yet. But I look forward to doing so.
Yeah. Is there a lot of English people, people that speak English over there?
Yeah, I think we're going to be right outside of Lisbon. So I think there's a fair English speaking and expat community. And also I think we really hope to, if we stay for long enough to really learn the language.
So how did this all come about? You went on vacation, just fell in love with the places, let's move here. Is that kind of how it happened?
Part of the impact, I think, on the way that I grew up and having getting to live in other countries. It's something I've always wanted for my kids to have that experience, to live in, just to live in another place and get access to those other narratives, so that we really lived inside of them. And yeah, we kind of went looking. My husband and kids have EU citizenship, which makes things available to us in a way that is helpful. So
you're just full of surprises.
Yeah, I think that's my surprise to pull out. Yeah.
So I'm sure your next book that you're working on, I'm sure you're not going to be doing what you're going to be working a little bit on that before the move, of course. But
yeah. Once we're settled,
Other than Portugal, what is another of your favorite places that you visited?
To travel. My husband and I, before, after I finished grad school and before we had kids, we went on a year-plus-long adventure. And we spent 3 months in Chile. And I found the country remarkable. The landscape is stunning and so varied. And we had a really wonderful time there. Yeah.
Well, you must have all kinds of ideas for future books.
I got a deep well. Yeah.
Is there a place you haven't visited yet that you'd like to go see?
I really want to go to Ireland. My mother's family is Irish and Scottish, and she grew up spending all her summers in Ireland. And there's some deep family roots there, and I would love.
My father lived in Sligo. In fact, it's small, Dromare, the county of Leitrim.
Wow.
I was in Ireland 10 or 11 years ago. It's cool, and it was my first time to Ireland.
Wow.
And I absolutely fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And I've said many times, if for whatever reason I'd have to leave the United States,
that's what we're doing. Wow.
I would go to Ireland. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, I hope you make it there. I mean, you're in Scotland. Scotland's gorgeous.
Also gorgeous. Yeah.
I went there with my dad many times, hiking and camping. Did you ever make it down to England?
Yes. Most of my cousins live in or around London and Kent area. So when Doncaster. So yeah, I spent a lot of time down there as a kid.
You have been around. Okay, back to your writing technique. I know that you like to write where it's quiet. You have children. You're currently working on a new book, either with the book you just wrote or the book that you're currently writing on. Number one, do you write every day? And do you set yourself writing goals?
Yeah. Yes. When I'm in the flow, yeah, my goal is to write every day.
Mm-hmm.
I take inspiration from, well, two places. One, first from my parents, watching them practice as a kid. It wasn't about do I feel like it? It was really a practice and a discipline. I kind of come to my instrument and play. So that has been with me for a long time. And then there's a writing practice that I love from the writer Anne Lamott called the 1-inch picture frame. And she encourages authors to imagine they have a 1-inch picture frame in front of them and just to write the scene, just to write what they see in that 1-inch picture frame. And I have found that very helpful and relieving to not be trying to contain the whole totality all at once, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in with California Dreaming, and especially like with my kids, I was writing during nap times and stolen moments. So I think I wrote 250 words a day. That was my goal, and that was it. And I would stop also at 250. Yeah.
But still, 250 words, if you think about it, if you hadn't written those, I mean, in 4 days, you have 1,000 words. That's a few pages.
And after a couple of years, you have a book.
Exactly. Yeah. Even if you write 50 words a day.
Yeah.
You're getting them down. You're getting your words. You're getting your story on paper.
Yes.
A lot of authors do like to set goals. Yours is 250. I have my goals. And some others, I mean, like I was going to ask you, if the words are not flowing, how do you fix that?
Yeah. The other thing I really love, the other kind of idea is shitty first draft. So, and especially as an editor, I just have this sense of get something out. Then maybe I'm going to delete everything. Maybe one word is going to remain from what I wrote, maybe one sentence. But it's a lot easier to work with something than nothing.
Exactly. Good point there. Yeah. Do you edit while you're writing? Do you go back, read what you just wrote? Or when
minimally. Like a little bit here and there, but no.
I don't. I'm afraid to. I think I did it with like one of my books, and it was like opening a can of worms. And it's like, I'm not doing that ever again. I was just editing the chapter for hours, and I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And with our work, I've experienced we could continue to change something. We're never going to be happy.
It would never end.
It would never end. So I think I'm like you, is I would just continue writing, continue writing, and I never look back.
Yeah.
And when I finished my last book, it took me about 8 months to write.
Yeah.
Now that I'm cleaning it up for my editor, which I did a couple of weeks ago, I went back and read chapter 1. That's the first time I read that chapter in 8 months.
Yeah, right.
But it also for me works because it's like new in my head again.
Yeah, exactly.
So for me, it really worked not to go back. And other authors, they need to go back and clean it up as they go along. But it's whatever works for us. For me, it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
I'm never going to do that again. And it's just for me, just getting the bones of the story on paper or computer, whatever, and then going back and fixing whatever. And I always say my first draft is a hot mess.
Yes.
And it really is.
Yeah. Great.
It really is. I know, right? You said that you like hiking. I want to ask, I don't know why, but I thought of cooking because you have a family.
Yeah.
Who does most of the cooking in your family, and what are your favorite meals?
We have a fairly even split, or we attempt to have a fairly even split of like 2 and 2 and a leftovers night. I would say, so my husband Jack has become quite the baker over the years we've been together. So he bakes a lot of breads and challah, and which is really fun. He likes to work from recipes, and I sort of just see what's in the pantry and put it together.
Just throw it together, whatever works. Yeah, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. I'm jealous that you get homemade bread. I
know. It's pretty fun.
That's not easy to do. I mean, does he do it the starter and everything like that? Because we looked at it one time to do sourdough bread.
My sister does the starters and the sourdough bread and really goes at it.
I mean, my God, it's like a science.
Yeah, it
you
is.
Have to feed it every day and take this. I'm just going to go to the store.
Yeah.
It really is. All right, we are coming up to the top of the hour, but I do want to talk about number. I always have a final question to my authors. For those that are aspiring writers that want to get a book published, what piece of advice would you give them?
Oh, I guess I would give the advice that my mother gave me, which is just keep going. Which obviously easier said than done. And I'm on the other side of it now. So like, okay. And, one of the things she said to me was something around this, that it's a practice and to keep, to just keep being. If you I want to be a writer, means to do writing, I think. And I think the publishing process is a whole other can of worms that I feel mostly lucky, and also that the rejections and the world out there, it's a whole I don't have so much advice except to keep sending it. I think
don't give up. And I always say, I said it earlier in this chat, you have to have a tough skin, not just with reviews, but like you said, with rejections. And
one of the things I learned from my many years of rejections, it's not really about the quality of your writing, not necessarily. Like, there are all kinds of other factors that go into whether a book is published or not, and at what time. But I sort of, talk about like idealism meeting realism. I think I went into it thinking if I write a beautiful sentence, if I perfect that beautiful sentence, then the rest will just come, and that's not necessarily the case. So
yeah. Well, congratulations on your debut novel. That was released this week.
Thank you so much.
I am so excited for you. I really am. And there is a giveaway, so I want to thank you also for the giveaway. And I'll let you tell the readers what you're giving away.
Yes, paperback book of California Dreaming, and I hope you love it.
All right, and we'll go ahead and pick the winner after the chat in about an hour or so, and I will reach out to your PR and to you with the details of the winner and the address. And I am doing my usual giveaway also, which is a $5 Amazon gift card. And you need to just share this video, tag me so I know that you shared it in your favorite groups, on your personal page, wherever you want to share it. Tag me, and you are entered into the drawing for a $5 Amazon gift card. And I will also announce that along with the winner of Noa's book. Noa, this has been so much fun.
Thank you so much.
I have really enjoyed this. And so much I want to say is, number one, good luck with your next book. And please let me know when it comes out. We can have you back.
Great.
Number two, good luck with your big move.
Crazy. Yeah.
My goodness. And I will let you say a last few words before we sign off.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and to everybody who came and listened. I so appreciate it. Really, thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, readers, for being here. I will be in the group shortly to announce the winners. And thank you for the great questions. And I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you, everybody. Good night.